Meow. Meow. You think there's only one here, but there's two. There's three, but only one makes noise. Greetings. I'm John O'Toole. It's part 2 of building your own computer for you. With the help of the fairy, of course. Now this is a hands-on section. And there's going to be a couple of more hands-on sections. Now you could, if you have all the parts on hand, you could build a computer in about 2 hours. And enjoy yourself. And you might even take 3 hours and take a break and come back and work on it some more. But I'm buying parts as I can afford them. So this is the second part. You've already seen part 1, and I talked about how to pick parts as an option. So today I'm going to basically start with the case and a few of the parts that go in the case, and then the next section will be installing the CPU into the motherboard and the cooler and the memory. They'll all go into the case, and we'll see how far we do in that one. After that, I'll be installing software, which is really quite quick with the solid-state drives. So, installing the solid-state drive in the motherboard. So, now my system, my next system, because I'm taking it from my understanding of my last system, is that I have a 2 terabyte drive, if you can imagine, that's just for video. All my videos that I've posted on CTSB, videos I've used on YouTube, and different types of videos like that, I have about a terabyte and a third of video. So I have a 2 terabyte drive that I have preloaded from my existing system to go into the new system. I would have liked to have gone with a 3 terabyte, but the price was a little higher, so I didn't go for it. When I fill up the 2 terabyte, then I might consider a 3 terabyte or something else. I also have another drive that's going to hold a lot of my documents, some photographs, music that I use from YouTube that I have stored files on, things like that. That's all going to be on an SSD. Oh, as a matter of fact, I could show you. So this is the drive. It's a WD drive, Western Digital. It's a blue drive versus the... so it's not as fast as an editing drive. But for videos, I don't really need a fast drive. So, this is a 2 terabyte drive. Now, I would like to have done this with an SSD, and that might be down the road when SSDs come down in price for 2 terabytes. But right now, they're still pretty far up there. And then I have an almost 1 terabyte. It's a 960. Yeah, a 960 ADATA SSD. And that's the one I told you. My documents are going in there. You know, all that kind of stuff. Now I also have So this is an M2 drive. Let's see if I can show you what it looks like. Basically, it looks like a stick of gum. So this is an M2 drive, and it's about the size of a stick of gum. This is going to go onto the motherboard when I have the motherboard. And it's very fast compared to the SSD, which is very fast. And the storage on the hard drive is a bit slower. But the hard drive was $60 for a 2 terabyte drive. A 2 terabyte SSD is about $300. So the prices will eventually come down. So this M2 drive is going to actually go on the motherboard, and I'll show you that there's actually a slot. There's actually 2 slots on the motherboard for these SSD, for this particular M2 drives, and it makes them very fast to work with. Now this drive isn't as fast as a Samsung, but a Samsung drive for 1 terabyte is about $250, whereas this one was $109. And even though it's slower, it may not be that noticeable. For now, it's a nice alternative. So we won't actually be doing anything with this drive today. I'll put this in the do later drive pile. Now the next part we're going to be putting in, and not necessarily in this order, we're actually going to start with the power supply. But so you can see what that is. This is a card reader, and this is going to go in on a USB 2 port, which are the white ones. The blue ones are the USB 3, and they're the high-speed ports. And the white ones are USB 2, which are slower. But there are some uses for that, like webcams. Webcams go on the USB 2. Your mouse, your keyboard uses USB 2. Things that go on the USB 3 are more like data drives or hard drives. You know, those kind of things that need a lot of speed. What else do we have in here? We have some cables. We have some fans. So we have some fans that I'll be installing on the top of this case. Now this case has the option of installing a water-cooled cooler for the CPU, and it mounts it to the top of the case. And so you have a grating on the case. It's the only thing I don't like about this case is that there's a grating on the top of the case where things can drop through. Me, I'm kind of a kook. You can see behind me, I try to take care of space. And now one of those things that people that have a lamp on a table and nothing ever goes on it. Any flat horizontal flat surface is going to get utilized. So I find that if I have fans blowing up, less things are going to fall down into the case. I may be wrong about it, but so far it has worked. So I am installing 2 fans into the top of the case. Okay, so that's that part. Which brings us down to the power supply and the case, of course. And here is the power supply. Now I'm using a Seasonic Focus Gold 650. Like I mentioned before, to me it seems like it's more the connectors than it is what's inside. But you're not going to use as much power as you think you're going to use. So there are different types of power supplies. One are proprietary power supplies. So if you buy a case, if you buy a computer that's a Dell computer or HP or some brand name that they have a unique case, they might have a unique power supply, and the only place you're going to get another power supply is from them. Which also means you may not be able to upgrade to a higher wattage power supply and a power supply that has more cases on it. For some reason, Seasonic, they like to give you bags. Just in case you're going on a picnic someday and you're going to advertise their product. So they ship their power supply not in a plastic bag that's going to get eaten by a turtle. They do these nice cloth bags. So back to the different types of power supplies. Most of the power supplies are the original power supplies. All the harnesses just come out of the power supply. But the newer ones are called modular power supplies. And on the back of the power supply, you can see all the connectors for harnesses. You may not actually use them all. And as the ones you use, you'd plug in, and the ones you don't use, you don't plug in. Now, the problem with not plugging in a cable is that if you don't put them somewhere, you could find them again. And you have to install a new component that needs a cord. And you can't find your cables. You're going to have to buy the cables. So, there is a downside to it. And personally, I would have rather had all the harnesses attached to the power supply. But the option wasn't there. It also would have been more expensive. So, this particular one was $89. I got it $10 off, and then I had a $25 rebate. But it does add up. So, they also give you another bag. Like I said, if you're going on a picnic, this would be a great bag to put something in. I don't know what. And these are all your cables. And you're going to plug in the cables that you need. And the cables you don't need, you're going to put back in the bag and store them someplace. I'm probably going to store my extra cables inside the computer case because I have lots of room in there. And then I won't lose track of them. So probably not going to really do much with these today. But I'm already running out of room. Now, generally speaking, with the power supply, these things are fairly standard. They might be a little longer. This one is fairly square, but the place where it mounts into the chassis of the case is fairly standard. The holes are always the same spot. So, there's two ways that you can install this. You can install it with a fan blowing up, or you can install it with the fan blowing down. Now, if the power supply mounts in your top of your case, you're going to put the fan blowing down. And if it installs to the bottom of your case, and you don't have a grill on the bottom of your case, you might have to mount it facing up. Now, the problem with it facing up is things can drop into it like a screw. And that would not be a good thing. And you might even have trouble getting it back out. So, the Corsair's the case has a grill on the bottom of the power supply, which is what we're going to show to you next. So, let's go to the other camera. Cha-cha-cha. Okay. What else we got here? Got the instruction manual. Instruction manual. So on the bottom of the case, there's a filter. Now if you can get to the filter every so often and clean it off, you should leave that there. But if you can't, it's too heavy for you to lift, then you should probably move it. There we go. Now what's nice about this case also is that just about every part on it can be removed with thumb screws. So the side panels are locked into place with thumb screws. when you're working on your case, you want to put these covers somewhere safe where they're not going to get all scratched up. I'm putting them under my desk. Generally, you won't take off this side panel here after the initial install unless you're getting into something, because most everything is on the other side. So you have access point here for the back of the CPU. And then you'll have places to feed cables through on your install. You got a front fan, and you have a rear fan, and then you have the top fans. And I wish that they made a panel for here, so to cover this whole panel up. Some kind of magnetic cover or something that you can go over this pot and prevent anything from falling in. But they don't. Well, there it is. Now here we have these top slots up here are for the front ports. So we have 3 ports on the front, 3 bays for CD drives, and also for that the card reader. I've seen some trays that actually are little drawers that can go there. Alright, and then on this side here, this right here is where you have 4 locations for SSDs. Already built into the case, so you don't need the carrier. And then down here is where hard drives go. And you could put 4 hard drives down in this spot right here. Power supply is located over here. Motherboard goes on the back wall. That's it. Easy peasy. We got slots over here for your cards to access the back of the machine. This is where the I/O panel is going to go. Most motherboards will have a panel that pops into this slot, and then your motherboard is inserted in there, and that way you don't have a big gaping hole. Power supply down here, and then these are where you're going to have your PC cards. All this stuff is pretty standard. But what's nice is that these screws here are all thumb screws. So they're easy to get out. Now you get a box that comes with it. You get a box, and this has all the screws and cable ties you need to do most everything in the installing your components that have to meet the threading of the board. It's like cable ties and kind of thing. So we have in the power supply. Right, here's the power supply. There's the fan. The grill's on the bottom. It'll be that easy. So in this bag here are two standoffs that are for the motherboard. If your motherboard needs extra standoffs. If I can find the screws. So here are the 4 screws for installing the power supply into the case. They're fairly a standard screw, but it's nice to find the precise ones that are meant for it. Now put these in loose in the beginning till you get the 4th screw in place. They don't have to be super tight, they just have to be tight. If you do them too tight, then you're going to strip them out. is a very long procedure, so be careful. Ready? Alright, we're done. We're gonna put in the SSD. We're done. So this is the CD-ROM drive. And this installs, over there I installed it down lower. So with the two drives we have left are the those and that one. So we just have to decide where we want to install. Reach in. Push out the panel. I'm going to install this one here. Or when you install it, you want the writing up. Not that I've ever installed it upside down. You ready for this? Done. Now if you're going to be transporting this around, you might want to put the screws in. But if you're not really transporting it, it's locked into place pretty good with a metal spring. So here's something important. These bread tie things, can you see them? You don't want these in your computer. So any place you have one, take it out. They should really never put them in. But for some reason, they're cheaper than other things. So while you're reading up. And the reason why is because eventually that plastic will dry out. And you don't want that wire in there. You want rather use wire ties, plastic wire ties. They have them that are reusable. They have Velcro ones too. Oh, this is the card reader. There you go. So they do give you screws for this, and you probably want to use them. Just because it doesn't have it's not a whole bay that locks into place. And all these edges, they've all been turned over and they're smooth. And that's an important feature of a good case, is that you're not actually getting yourself cut. Alright, now this harness here is for See, now here the on-off switch. This is the on-off switch. This is the reset. The two USBs are USB 3s, and then you have your headphones and the microphone. So these are anti-cat. Because if you have a cat, they like to step on buttons. My daughter named her cat Buttons. It's another weather tie. So this is the audio connector here. Where are we? This is the audio connector. This is the USB 3. And for some reason, these are for the switch symbol and the hard drive light, the power light. They could put this in a connector. It's essentially the same on all motherboards, but they just like to play with us. So we have to put this on. And I'll explain this to you when I get to it. But that's something we need with the motherboard. This connector here is USB 2. It's a standard connector. So the only thing left that we can do right now is install the fans. Alrighty. So this here is a jumper to take two fans and plug it into one spot on the motherboard. Now, depending on your motherboard, you may have enough fan headers to accommodate the two extra fans on the top. It all depends on your motherboard. The motherboard should have a fan connector for the CPU, and then there should be one for the front or the rear fan that's going in the case. But you could also have a header for both the front and the rear header on the case. Now, some fan setups, they have a control module that mounts on the back panel of the case, and all your fans plug into it. And then you can control it through software on how the fans operate, or the system will do that. So the differences between the fans are these fans have 3 pins to them, and some fans have 4. And that's all about the control of the fan. You know, if you have the fans on full speed all the time, you're going to hear wee all the time. Because you most likely don't need them at top speed. And I know that from experience, because I had my fans plugged into one of the power connectors, and it was wee all the time. And then all of a sudden I discovered that the circuit board that I had, motherboard I had at the time, had an extra fan header. And then the word header, for some reason, they use the word header as the same thing as a connector on the board. So when you see the word header, it means actually a connector on the motherboard for you to plug in a cable to. But when I plugged that fan into the motherboard, it all of a sudden stopped doing the wee all the time, and I never heard the fan again. So then it took over control for it, increased the speed when it needed to. Some fans, they have these LED lights in them to make them look cool. If you're into that kind of thing, you can also get yourself some Christmas lights at the dollar store and light up your computer that way. Just saying. So that's what this cable is for. And I'm not sure. I've looked at my motherboard specs, and I think I might be all set, but I'm not sure until I actually see it. So I'll probably hook these up to it just in case. So the other thing you want to keep in mind now with the cable, installing your fan, is where this cable goes, because what you want to do is have the cable come out as close to the header is going to be, so that you don't have this cable running through your path of your computer. Your path of the computer. So in most cases, you're going to want the motherboard's on the bottom. You're going to want this to come out the bottom. And well, there's your only choice, out the bottom. And then if this is going to run into this other harness, you can stash it in the back wall of the case and cable tie it in place so it's out of the way. Now with fans, almost always, but not always, but almost always, the side here that has the protector on it, it's not really a protector. Sometimes there's some kind of like a little bit more of a screen to keep you from putting your finger into it while it's turning. Well, that side is the side that the air is blowing out, and then this side is blowing in. And it's important that you install your fan in the correct direction. In this case, and in most cases, you want to have as much air blowing out of the case, either through the back or the top, and not the other way around. You don't really wish to blow air into the case. Now, the exception to that is the front fan. If you have a fan in the front of the case, that's the only fan that you're going to have blowing air in. And the reason being is you might even consider unplugging your front fan. And if that's the case, then I could actually plug both of these into the headers and leave the front fan unplugged. Now the reason behind that is that when you just draw air in all the nooks and crannies, you get a lot less dust coming in. So the better rule of thumb would be to unplug your front fan and have it as a spare if one of your other fans fail. And that'll save you $12 in shipping and time. So that might actually be what I'll do on this build, is just that. I like having fans on the top because I'm kind of a pack rat, like I've said, and it kind of blows things away. I don't know how effective it is, but peace of mind is always a better thing than anything else. Now, like I said, these fans use a different screw. It's extremely coarse. When you see them, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. You can see the threads on my camera, which isn't too bad actually. So when you put these in, it's helpful if you turn it counterclockwise a half a turn and then turn in, because you're threading into plastic. Anytime that you're threading into plastic, it's handy to turn in counterclockwise. That sets the screw in the hole, and then turn it in, and it cuts down on the chances of splitting the hole. It's just an old technician trick. So we're going to install these fans into the case, just like this, with the grill facing against the frame to blow the air out of the case. So in my haste of making this video, I've actually installed the fans upside down. We make mistakes. I'm human. Don't tell anybody. I'm actually shooting this video a few weeks after I shot the rest of this video. I'm telling you a secret. Don't tell anybody, please. I don't want anybody to know. So I shot the video before, and my elbow bumped into the camera while we're recording part of the build. And what happened was I didn't notice it. I didn't notice it really until I was editing the video. And there was a whole part of video that was shot with the camera not pointing very closely at the PC case. And it was looking more at my green wall. Kind of comical, don't you think? Now I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do? You didn't get to see anything. So I decided that I would shoot another section, and I put this up on the table, and I thought I took off the right panel. I really wasn't thinking that much about it, but now that I'm looking at this case, I realize that I'm looking at the back side of the case. So when I said to point these down, I pointed them down. But in reality, I have to point them up, because this is actually the back side of the case. And it's kind of a good chance for you to get a good look at the back side of the case, because I probably hadn't shown it to you much. Now, some cases will have you install your SSDs in the back of the case, because once you have them installed, chances are you're not going to take them out for a long time. So there might be a couple of spots back there. There might be 4 spots back there for SSD mounts. Not on this case, though, because it has 4 spots on the other side. So this is a chance for you to kind of get a good look at the case. So as you can see, there's plenty of access hole to run cable through. There's even one on right here. There's a power connector on the motherboard that is right here. So there's a slot right here to feed your power cable through it to go down and come up and plug into the board. So here it is. It's got the cable going up. I'm going to install this. This is where turning the screw backward a little bit before you start driving it is important, because here now I've taken the fans off twice. And you can feel it. By back turning the screw, it'll center itself into the hole better, and there's a less chance it's going to strip it out. Being a plastic assembly, it's really easy to cross-thread it. Putting a little white stuff around the hole so I can see it through the case. Bingo. So when I have the parts available to me to go to the next step, I'll have you back again to do part 3. In the meantime, it's a good idea to upgrade your Windows machines. I was going to cover this, and I will cover it in a future episode. But you upgrading your Windows 7 to Windows 10 is a really good idea these days. Windows 10 now is a very stable package. Microsoft, it goes above and beyond to keep the product current, and it's a much secure system because that's where they're putting all their focus on. Windows 7 is going to go out of updates in 2020, which isn't far away, really, when you think about it. Now, a good thing to know is that if you already have a Windows 7 license key for your operating system, you can use that license key to upgrade to Windows 10. You have a license key tag that's on your computer case now. That tag can go and be used to upgrade to Windows 10. Now, Windows 10 isn't really all that expensive. It's only around $100. And you could find the whole package of Windows 7 because it's basically, not going to be usable for only a few more months. So if you buy a Windows 7 license key right now, you don't want to buy a key that's been used before, and you have to be very careful because there are a lot of, you might find this hard to believe. I found it hard to believe that there are people out there that want to make money from you. Even if it's only $20. They just want to make money from you, and you're stuck. And you may not find out you're stuck until months down the road when Microsoft finally realizes that you have a pirated copy of Windows. Here's an example of an OEM version of Windows 7 Professional. Sealed. The retail version is a box. This is for an OEM installation, which is basically means someone's going to build a computer and they're going to then install Windows 7 on it. So I can open this up, and inside it is going to be a sticker that you'd peel off and stick it onto your case. And it's going to have a disk in here. Now the disk is it's Windows 7 Professional. So you can install it, but I would download a fresh copy off the internet if you're going to put Windows 7 on it. But there's really no reason to put Windows 7 on it because you can put on Windows 10. And then go from there. Now, the only problems you might have on getting to Windows 10 is that your computer is so far out of date that the hardware has no drivers. Now, I ran into that on my Windows, on my Acer computer that I had for my daughter, that Acer computer refused to write any new drivers to support Windows 10. There are ways around it. You have to get creative. You might have to find drivers for Windows 8 and then go from 8 to 10. So there are ways around it, but the bottom line is, if you have that problem, you're better off upgrading your motherboard to something that'll work in your new surroundings. It's a problem that we all run into. Sooner or later, you've got to upgrade it to something new. But with that, you have better performance and more speed. So, and if you use your computer aggressively, then that's the way it is. If your iPhone or your smartphone replaces your computer, then we're probably not even having this conversation. So there you go. Hope you join me for part 3. And if you haven't seen part 1 yet, go watch part 1. It'll be on there sometime. We love CGSB. Share it with your friends. A lot of great programming, and it's the only place you're going to get local programming, honest and true. Until next time, the fairy's thinking of you. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Ba-da-ba-ba.